Élisabeth Charlotte d'Orléans was a French petite-fille de France and by marriage to Leopold, Duke of Lorraine, Duchess and later regent of Lorraine and Bar.She was also jure Princess of Commercy. Among her children was Francis I, Holy Roman Emperor, a co-founder of the House of Habsburg-Lorraine family. Élisabeth Charlotte was born at the Château de Saint-Cloud outside Paris. She was the daughter of Philippe, Duke of Orléans, Monsieur, and of his second wife, Élisabeth Charlotte of the Palatinate, Madame, the daughter of Charles I Louis, Elector Palatine. Her father was the only sibling of King Louis XIV of France. As a petite-fille de France, she was entitled to have the style of Her Royal Highness, as well as the right to an armchair in the presence of the king. At birth, she was given the honorary style Mademoiselle de Chartres, taken from the name of one of her father's appanages. After the marriage of her two elder half-sisters, Marie-Louise and Anne-Marie, born at the first marriage of their father to Henrietta Anne of England, she was known as Madame Royal, according to her status as the highest-ranking unmarried princess in France. As a child, Élisabeth Charlotte was described by her mother as terribly wild and rough as a boy. To her father's displeasure, she inherited her mother's frank opinions. Marriage. Her mother wanted her to marry with the same level of prestige as that of her sisters. When her cousin's wife, the Dauphine, suggested she should marry the Dauphine's younger brother Joseph Clemens of Bavaria, Élisabeth Charlotte said, "I am not made, madam, for a younger son." As her mother despised the king's illegitimate children, the chances of such an alliance were remote. However, in 1692, to the horror of the Duchess of Orléans, such a mismatch occurred when the Duke of Chartres married Françoise Marie de Bourbon, the youngest legitimized daughter of Louis XIV and Madame de Montespan. Elizabeth's mother initially wanted her daughter to marry King William III of England, who was the widow of Queen Mary II of England, but, due to religious differences, William being a Protestant, the marriage did not materialize. Other candidates considered were Holy Roman Emperor Joseph I. Joseph was highly regarded, and, had the marriage taken place, the union would have been a way of reconciling the Bourbons and the traditional rivals, the Habsburgs. Even her widowed first cousin Monseigneur, the Dauphin of France, was considered, as were his son, Louis de France, and another cousin, the legitimized Louis Auguste de Bourbon, Duke of Maine, eldest son of Louis XIV and Madame de Montespan. The latter, much to the relief of Madame, did not occur as the Duke of Maine married Mademoiselle de Charolais in May 1692. Élisabeth Charlotte was finally married on the 13th of October 1698 at the Palace of Fontainebleau to Leopold, Duke of Lorraine, son of Charles V, Duke of Lorraine, and of the Archduchess Eleonora Maria Josepha of Austria. The marriage was the result of the Treaty of Ryswick, one of its conditions being that the Duchy of Lorraine, which had been for many years in the possession of France, be restored to Leopold Joseph, a son of Charles V, Duke of Lorraine. Thus, Élisabeth Charlotte was but an instrument to cement the peace treaty. Her mother later said that her daughter was a victim of war. Duchess of Lorraine. The marriage was seen as a brilliant match by the House of Lorraine but was regarded by some as a rank not deserved for a petite-fille de France. Despite this, the House of Lorraine received a dowry of 900,000 livres. So many honors excited the jealousy of the other members of the royal family, and, taking the pretext of the death of the child of the Duke of Maine, certain princesses claimed to attend the marriage ceremonies by proxy in dress of mourning. After Élisabeth Charlotte's marriage, her niece Louise Adélaïde d'Orléans, who was born on the 13th of August 1698, took on the style of Mademoiselle de Chartres. to everyone's surprise, what had been expected to be an unhappy union turned out to be a marriage of love and happiness. With the birth of her children, Élisabeth Charlotte showed great maternal instinct and a naturally caring character. The marriage produced 13 children, of which 5 survived into adulthood. 3 of them died within a week in May 1711 due to a smallpox outbreak at the Château de Lunéville, the country seat of the Dukes of Lorraine. After 10 years, however, her husband turned his attentions to another, Anne Marguerite de Lunéville, Princess de Beauvau-Cron. Embarrassed, Élisabeth Charlotte, on her mother's advice, remained silent and continued to live in the Château de Lunéville with her husband and his mistress. After her husband's liaison ended, the couple had 5 more children, one of whom would become the father of Queen Marie Antoinette. In June 1701, her father died after having a heated argument with Louis XIV at Versailles about the Duke of Chartres. Her brother thus became the new Duke of Orléans and head of the House of Orléans. Her mother was left at the mercy of Louis XIV, who forbade her from visiting foreign soil. As a result, Élisabeth Charlotte was only able to see her mother when she went to Versailles. Despite this, Élisabeth Charlotte and her mother still saw each other and kept in contact through letters. Their correspondence was tragically destroyed in a fire at the Château de Lunéville in 1719. On the death of Louis XIV in 1715, her elder brother became the regent of France for the 5-year-old King Louis XV. In 1718, during a brief visit to the French court in Paris, her niece the Dowager Duchess of Berry gave a splendid reception in her honor at the Palais du Luxembourg, which included 132 hors d'oeuvres, 32 soups, 60 entrées, 130 hot entremets, 60 cold entremets, 72 plats ronds, 82 pigeons, 370 partridges and pheasants, and 126 sweetbreads. The dessert consisted of 100 baskets of fresh fruit, 94 baskets of dried fruit, 50 dishes of fruits glacés, and 106 compotes. The event was considered one of the most lavish of the season. Upon leaving France, her husband received the style of Royal Highness, given to foreign princes, as at the court of France. The House of Lorraine was deemed as being a foreign house. Louis XV was crowned King of France at the Cathedral of Reims, on the 25th of October 1722. The occasion was the only time Élisabeth Charlotte's youngest child, Anne Charlotte, would see her mother, who died a few weeks later on the 8th of December. Élisabeth Charlotte's brother died a year after the death of the mother, on the 2nd of December 1723. Regent of Lorraine. Her husband died in 1729, leaving his wife Regent of Lorraine for the son, Francis Stephen of Lorraine. After being educated in Vienna, Francis Stephen returned to Lorraine in 1730. Then he went back to Vienna after giving his mother's tenure as regent. Élisabeth Charlotte tried to engage her youngest child, Anne Charlotte, to King Louis XV. This project failed due to the intrigues of Duke of Bourbon. Élisabeth Charlotte then tried to arrange the marriage of Anne Charlotte to her first cousin Louis d'Orléans, Duke of Orléans, who had been recently widowed. Louis d'Orléans refused. Princess of Commercy, unable to prevent her son from giving up the Duchy of Lorraine to Stanislaw Leszczynski when he married the Habsburg heiress, Maria Theresa of Austria, Élisabeth Charlotte moved into the Château de Rouen nearby Commercy, which was turned into a sovereign principality for her to enjoy during her dowager years. In 1737, her daughter, Elizabeth Therese, married Charles Emmanuel III of Sardinia. Elisabetta Teresa, as she was known in Italy, died in childbirth in 1741 after giving birth to Élisabeth Charlotte's grandson, Benedetto. Duke of Chablais. On 7 January 1744, her youngest son, Charles Alexander of Lorraine, made a marriage of love with Archduchess Maria Anna of Austria, who died in childbirth on 16 December 1744. Élisabeth Charlotte died of a stroke on 23 December 1744, 1 week after her daughter-in-law and her child, at the age of 68. She was the last of her siblings to die and had outlived 10 of her 13 children. 9 months after her death, her son Francis Stephen became Holy Roman Emperor. She was buried in the funerary chapel of the Dukes of Lorraine in the St. François des Cordeliers Church in Nancy. Legacy: Élisabeth Charlotte authorized the construction of a hospital in the town of Briez. In 1730, she offered to the Church of Matincourt the wooden gilded shrine for the relics of Pierre Fourier, the former parish priest who had been beatified on 29 January 1730. The modern Basilique Saint-Pierre Fournier was built in 1853 on the site of the former church. In 1696, the French author Charles Perrault dedicated Les Comtesses de Marmire to Élisabeth Charlotte, who was then 19. Issue: Prince Leopold, hereditary Prince of Lorraine, died in infancy. Élisabeth Charlotte of Lorraine died of smallpox. Louise Christine of Lorraine died in infancy. Marie Gabrielle Charlotte of Lorraine died of smallpox. Louis, hereditary Prince of Lorraine, died of smallpox. Josephine Gabrielle of Lorraine died in infancy. Gabrielle Louise of Lorraine died in infancy. Leopold Clement, hereditary Prince of Lorraine, died unmarried. Francis I, Holy Roman Emperor, married Archduchess Maria Theresa of Austria and had issue. Eleanor of Lorraine died in infancy. Elizabeth Therese of Lorraine married Charles Emmanuel III of Sardinia and had issue. Prince Charles Alexander of Lorraine married Maria Anna of Austria and had no surviving issue. Anne Charlotte of Lorraine died unmarried. Stillborn daughter. Ancestors. Titles, styles, honors and arms. Titles and styles: the 13th of September 1676 to 10 April 1684, Her Royal Highness Mademoiselle de Chartres. The 10th of April 1684 to 13 October 1698, Her Royal Highness Mademoiselle. The 13th of October 1698 to 27 March 1729, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Lorraine. The 27th of March 1729 to 23 December 1744, Her Royal Highness the Dowager Duchess of Lorraine.